Almost straight up.
Can you guys hear me? Straight up, yeah.
Yes.
Broadcasting from
Oh, shut up.
via satellite from Hawaii. Let's see if you can see the mountains and the other stuff in that direction.
Tom, you homesick?
Oh, okay. So nobody else is going to say it. I will, Phil. This is Jim. You suck.
You know, I think I deserve that. I really appreciate that, Jim. That's awesome.
Well, it's not too bad here in Seattle. So, well, it's a nice area there.
I guess some folks are flying up in Arlington. That's good.
Yeah, it was a pretty good day.
Charlie, did you get up or are you going tomorrow?
No, I got up. I'm going to go tomorrow too, because I've never flown, and I flew twice today with Stan. I'm going to fly twice tomorrow with Ron. But Stan checked me out today, but I feel like he's a couple more flights.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you. Are you putting it in the hangar tonight? Is that right?
No, we decided not to. I gave him the option that that'd be just easier to keep that sign, put covers on it. We'll hang the covers in my hangar.
No, that's awesome, man. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. I think.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I think next week, like Saturday or Sunday through Wednesday, might be some pretty good days for checkouts.
Awesome. Well,
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sorry for butting in. I'm not sure if Doug will be coming out. I haven't seen an email reply back from him, but Lynn is planning to be out. Looks like Gary Peterson is going to be out on the afternoon, and myself. And then we'll see. I will probably text to Doug or one of our new members if he's coming out tomorrow to get a check ride or not.
I think he said he was coming.
Yeah, in earlier he said, so I take that he's coming.
Yeah, he's not much on emails. So.
Yeah, we got Gary Peterson coming out too. It's a new member, and he's flown gliders in some different locations throughout the world, and he's a one of my Delta captains. So it's always good to have new members coming out and doing some checkouts, and hopefully we keep bringing in some new blood and getting them all checked out. That's wonderful. So without much further ado, I think we can go into the meeting agenda. We got a little bit of a quorum here. Good to see everybody. It's really nice to be able to do these via Zoom and allow me to continue earning a paycheck for my family and still attend glider meetings. So that's kind of nice. We've got the agenda-wise, Mike sent out the email blast, and I think we may just be able to go straight into the glider trailer lottery. Is that okay for you, Jim?
Yeah, we can. I was going to try and do things a little bit different, but yeah, we can go straight in the trailer lottery. If you can give me just a couple minutes, because there were a number of last-minute entries. They want to be.
Yeah, no problem. And then, do you, Jim, when you were tallying up those last-minute entries, you got time to do that? We can go just a little bit later. Will you need to have the ability to share screen when you do that, or can you just do it verbally via a video drawing?
So Phil, oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was going to say, Craig, if you want to share it out, or I can share out the files you have that shows a map.
I've got it all set up so I can fill it in on the fly, and Jim is going to run the random drawing. So we may. I don't see. I mean, there's not a big crowd here yet, and not a lot of people that normally pick up trailer spots. We may want to push it towards, give them a few minutes to figure out how to use Zoom.
Yeah, that's good. And then, do you?
Sorry.
You think we should just go on into the next meeting topic or two, or?
Sure, that works fine.
Craig, do you want to?
My rolling eyes were just because I saw that the QuickBooks subscription expired since 2016, and I didn't have a warning on that one, so that's why I was rolling my eye. I'm sorry about that. But it's like, oh, great. Well, I have everything printed out, so not a big deal, and then I will renew. But yeah, I just got surprised.
Okay, so what I can do is that if you want, I can turn it over to Craig for an intro into financial summaries, and it doesn't have to be the exact detail that we normally would go into at our meetings. But Craig, do you want me to share the screen
Sure.
right this time?
No,
Okay.
we don't need to share the screen. It can be a verbal presentation.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, everybody knows we did not operate last year. We did, however, have all of our fixed costs. We had current annuals on all the tow planes prior to being shut down. So we went a year with all of our fixed costs and no income. We're going into this year having paid this year's fixed costs. Current bank balance is $19,411.79. So we want to get back on the revenue train. The biggest news that happened is that in December, we were notified that our IRS tax exempt status expired in 2017 for 3 consecutive years of non-filing tax returns. And this was a surprise to all of us. And there's lots of reasons why it probably shouldn't have been a surprise, but it is what it is. Tax returns have not been filed for any of the subsequent years either. So the board formed a committee. The committee is Rita and Noel Wade and myself, and we are tasked with reinstating our tax exempt status. We still are a corporation registered with the state. We retain our nonprofit corporate status, but our tax exempt status needs to be reinstated. So the first thing that has to happen is all the back tax forms have to be filed. We're currently doing that. And then there is a fairly involved form that is required for reinstatement. And we are very fortunate in that my wife's law firm has volunteered her services to fill out that form and help us through that. She does that as part of her normal practice. She's a nonprofit corporate attorney. So we're fortunate to have that. That is in process. We will be able to be reinstated as a tax exempt entity. The question is whether we can be retroactively reinstated. The committee asked the board for authorization to be able to work to a limited extent with specialized tax person. And so we will do that support as necessary, but fairly limited. And Karen's firm has volunteered her services pro bono. So they're, other than direct expenses, if one of her staff has to do something like file a paper, the expenses to the organization will be very small from there. So that's what I have. I'm happy to take questions offline if people have questions. So the good news is we have money. There's nothing amiss with the books. There's no missing money. There's no cause for concern that things have disappeared, but we do need to get square with the IRS. And we need to get some revenue coming. We need to get people flying. I think everybody wants to go fly, so that's a happy coincidence.
Yeah, and Craig, one thing I'll add on that is the revenue streams are not like super large, and it's not like there's any really big issue with any type of back filings or anything. It's just really a matter of keeping our books up to speed, each year as we go. So
right, the club doesn't make money. We don't profit per se. Everything we do gets plowed back into operations. So it's not like we are a multi-million-dollar corporation that did not pay taxes at all. I mean, the risk is if we don't get retroactively reinstated, that we are obligated to pay the income taxes that we would have normally required to pay, and there's potential for tax penalties on that. So if that were to happen, we'll have to contest that and go through that process.
Yeah, and just for the membership too, the general understanding is that we have some operating profits that go back into the SGC itself to fund our operations. And then there is also the SGC Soaring Foundation, which is also a nonprofit, and they generate earnings from the contest fees and things like that, and they are saving that money for the future, correct?
And it should be emphasized that those two corporations are completely independent and completely unrelated from a financial accounting corporate formation standpoint. Yes, we do business with each other, but they are separate entities.
Exactly, separate entities. Okay, good. And then speaking of that separate entity, Rita has been working on the books and for the Soaring Foundation, and it's kind of a similar story for the Soaring Foundation last year, based on most things being on ice for 2020. Rita, would you like to go into a presentation on the books and some of the data that you found for the annual review of Soaring Foundation?
I think we can just do verbally also to keep it short and simple. So I would just go ahead and give a few numbers and the gist of it, and that would be it. And so first, I would like to thank you, Phil and Heinz. We did the audit earlier this year and everything is in order. Another thing I wanted to mention that we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and donations are tax deductible depending on your personal tax situation. So donations are always welcome. It hasn't been very much. Maybe many of you don't know that the whole Clubhouse and maintaining the training center, technically not per se Clubhouse, it's actually a training center. It really had been a huge investment that all was from donations and volunteer work. And if you're in a Clubhouse, there is a board with the amounts who donated how much. It's kind of worth take a look as a reminder. We don't see that much income because we didn't have that much need for income through donations, but it's always very welcome, and just think about it anytime if you have extra money to donate to do so. With that, I wanted to say thank you to John Noel. He donated his last year's already prepaid DG membership, $950 to the foundation. And Tom Dixon had deposited on the contest $150, and he also donated that. And if you shop on Amazon.com, they do have a charitable program, and we are on their list. So you can choose the SGC Soaring Foundation, and then actually Amazon will donate to the foundation. So far, we get like annually $5, but it does pop up. I did notice when I shopped, I don't shop on Amazon that much, but check into it. And if you see a list that choose your charity, then you can find us on the list. And that's also can be some income. Interest income has not been much on the $34,000 that we have in Fidelity account. The DG group had from the previous year some flight fees, $660, not very significant. We have to pay also some expenses. We had annual, and then we still had to have an annual this year, but anyhow, repairs and maintenance, $3,000 last year. And then the insurance, it was even without the flight insurance, it was still $3,772 for the DG1000 for the year. And $2,500 is just a straight line depreciation each year. And then a couple of other smaller things, property tax and rent and lease that we pay, we get reimbursed from the SGC, that it's almost $10,000 each year. So eventually that's being reimbursed, but having the depreciation, having the repair and maintenance, and a few other items that I just mentioned, insurance, we ended up losing $8,335. Just like it's true, fortunately, for the foundation also, that is true for the SGC, that we still have assets, we still have money in the bank. So it's not too much of a dire situation. But of course, we always have to think that any new site development or anything like that, in the long term, it's good to have extra money in the bank and keep it running. And hopefully some of that will earn some interest along the way. So the total current assets, technically just the money that is in the bank, is $121,000 and $121,135. It's in a contest account, in a fidelity account, in a KeyBank checking account. The DG1000 is still valued at $130,000. The training center is at $55,000. And with that, that's just pretty much, that's all, but in rough lines, that's how the Soaring Foundation's financial situation is at this time. And pretty much just, yep, and that's it. And so far, I think we still have quite a few spots on the DG1000 glider. And today, a few pilots got checked out. I wasn't there, so I don't know how many, but the DG1000 was already flying twice this year with dual flights. A few of us will be out tomorrow. So it is live and well and active. So please join. Let's fill out the 12 spots and make that negative number into a positive one. And it should be a lot funner season than it was last year. So hopefully financially too. And thank you so much. That was it.
Okay, thanks, Rita, for that presentation on the numbers. And one thing I kind of noticed with the financial situation, just having looked at the books for the first time, being on the board, is that it seems like the board and the organization has been a good steward of the finances, even with a little hiccup here and there on that one tax filing situation, but that really should be resolved with not much difficulty. And the finances, minus the lack of income last year, they're in pretty good shape, and we're on the same trajectory that we have been on for years if we continue to fly. So it's been a good steward of the taxpayer dollars, so to speak. So I'm pleased with that. And since it's kind of an important topic, if any other members have any other questions, I mean, I've just been exposed to the books for the first time, so it's kind of a lot to look at. But if they have any other questions for Rita or Craig, if they want to bring those up now, that's great. And Craig also said that you can ask him some questions offline. And so I'll have a pause here if anybody wants to ask any other questions on that, and then we'll just move on to the next topic. Okay, I don't see any hands up. So I see our resident IT expert has joined the meeting. And I mean, he might even fall under at least two categories. One of them may be a MacCready discussion, and secondly, about future events. I know Noel has been working really hard on all the Region 8 information as well. And when I look at the potential for the number of players involved with Region 8 and all the planning and volunteer effort, we could always use more volunteers, and it's really good to see Noel in there doing some work on that. So Noel, are you on board? Do you want to do a little talk on MacCready discussion this time?
Well, I tell you what, why don't we save MacCready discussion for towards the end, maybe?
Yeah.
That way we can cover other businesses.
If you want.
Is trailer looking kind of ready? You got all the entries tabulated there, Jim?
Yeah, so I'm set to go, and so far, I think I've got everybody on here that's made a request either by email or who's shown up here at the meeting. And just to start off with, just run down through the list real quick, list everybody's name. And then if you don't hear your name come up, you wanted a spot or you didn't want a spot, let me know and I'll make sure to remove you from there.
Mike, can you allow screen sharing, and I'll bring up the aerial of the site?
Can Alex Winbow mute? Thank you.
Alex is muted. Somebody else is listening to the game.
I believe it might be Funston's.
I'll take care of it.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Maybe they're listening to some rap music in the background. That's always good on Zoom calls.
Nelson, can you mute?
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to run through the list here real quick of who we've got signed up. So far, I've got Movsis. I have Jeff Banks, Brian Case, Kurt Chenoweth, Matt Coleman, Rita Idris, Kelvin Flavel, Greg Funston, Heinz Gelahar, Ito Uriosuke, Brad Johnson, Chris Clicks, David Lindberg, Charles Longley, David Mellon, Mike Newgard, Phil Rose, Scott Randy, Tom Udd, or Randy Scott, sorry about that, and Noel Wade and Dave Widrick. Is there anybody that I missed?
I did send, sorry, I did send in a check for the DG 1000.
Okay.
And I hope that that reached the mailbox and somebody picked it up, or it should be there. And if we can request the same usual spot for both the trailer and the tie down spots for easy handling at the very end, that would be really appreciated.
You can when DG comes up, you can speak for the spot. So the check did come to the PO box. Kelvin picked it up and he's mailing it to me.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And my interest is only for the contest there.
Oh, okay, these are for the annual.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so choice number one actually goes to.
Well, we don't have. Mike is trying to get the screen to share so people can see what the map looks like.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's actually his double counter. I'm trying to, I've been clicking on this before to share the screen, and for some reason, it's not allowing me to do that.
You have to enable screen sharing for everybody else.
It says normally I can send it straight to you.
No.
Let me see if it's me.
Working.
I think that was the one that you have to be the host to be able to share your screen. Didn't that what we ended up last time?
Yeah, that's fine. Turn over the hosting to me and I can share.
So maybe, hey, Mike, can you do it? Mike Newgard?
Yep. There you go.
Nice.
I'm sure there's some entertaining YouTube somewhere about old people doing Zoom. Not that anybody's old here, sorry.
Yeah.
You should
no
have it
people
now.
here.
Craig, you got it?
Yeah, we got it.
All right.
When Craig's done, I can tell you guys how to solve this.
There it is.
Perfect.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start going down the list, and this is based on essentially a random number generator inside an Excel spreadsheet, and this is what it popped up for the numbers. So, Mr. David Mellon, you're number one. What's your choice?
Looks like he's absent.
Dave may not be here.
Okay.
You have to be present to win.
Yeah, no, understood. Okay. Rita, you're up.
It's for Rita's personal ship?
That would be for the Minilac.
Okay.
And would like to take number 19 with the hopes that the DG 1000 will be 20. But that's another story.
Okay, 19er.
Lima Kilo.
Okay, Lima Kilo.
Okay.
And will the DG 1000 number will come up at some point? Because it wasn't on the list.
Okay, we've got it recorded. Jim, who's next?
All right, looking through the list.
You,
Okay, next up is Mr. Jeffrey Banks.
I'll take number 1.
Number 1, okay.
Jeff, what's your call sign?
November 9.
Number 9, okay. And I didn't see Mopsis online. He actually popped up next, but he's not here. Okay, Charlie Longley.
Number 2, please.
2, okay. And what's your
Alpha Sierra.
Alpha Sierra? Got it. Is Brad Johnson present? Okay. I assume he would be in for the DG 1000 or the DG 500, I guess. Okay, let's see. Next is Greg Funston.
No. I'll take number 41.
41, okay, for Juliet November.
Yes.
Okay, Kurt Chenoweth.
Yeah, let's see. Is this for DustUp or is this for the whole year?
Just for the whole year.
Okay, I'm going to have to pass on that because I was kind of looking for DustUp. So you can pass me off.
Yeah, DustUp's catch as catch can.
Okay.
All right. Next I have, is Heinz on?
Heinz might be the DG and Rita could be his proxy.
Okay.
yeah, that's right. Heinz
If
was
nobody
about to
has
sign up.
objections to that, I'm certainly willing to accept it.
Yeah, so if it's okay, then we would like to have, yeah, that number 20. And while you typing, can I just say that last year somebody started out that line and put the front of the trailer kind of lined up with the fence line. And I think it used to be that the tailgates of the trailers lined up with the fence line. If somebody can clarify that, that would be great.
Okay. Rita,
So like last year, how the trailers started to line up, those few that
Yeah.
were there, is just like how it's drawn right now. But it's
Rita,
not.
what's the tail number on the DG 1000?
Sierra.
Sierra. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I've got Tom Udd.
Okay, I'll take number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Call sign?
It's Alpha Victor.
Alpha Victor. Okay.
And I also paid for the RV spot. I'll take my regular one, number 1, I guess
Yeah,
it is.
that's Kelvin's going to
I'm
take care
just-
of all that later. We don't have reservations on the RV spots at this point.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we should park it. There's a line along the blacktop where the back of the trailers line up would be perfect on that row. So just for everyone to know that that's what it should be.
You know what? I would suggest we put that down as an order of business to make sure that gets communicated out if that's the desire.
That's what we've done in the past, so it worked out well.
Well,
Okay.
there'll be a map that goes out and you guys can all email each other and nail it
Okay.
down.
All right.
David Widrig.
So I don't own a glider. I don't have an interest in a parking place.
Oh, that's easy. Okay.
We'll still sell you
For your
one.
donation. Thank you for your
They're
donation.
only $200.
The sailplane's $200.
All right, Dave Lindbergh.
All right, how about number 14?
1-4. And tail number?
Lima 4.
Lima 4. Got it. Matt Coleman.
I'll pass. I have no need for it. Thanks.
Okay. Chris Clicks.
I'll take 23.
2-3. And tail number?
LS7 or Lima Sierra 7.
LS7. Okay. Ito-san.
Yes, can I get the number 9?
Number 9. Okay.
Yes.
And what call sign?
7 X-ray.
7 X-ray.
Yes.
Wonderful. We have you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Newgard.
Number 17.
1-7. Okay.
50.
50. Okay, Phil Rose.
I think we're covered with the Mini-Lac and the DG1000, but it's always good to have Mike Newgard in your neighborhood. He's very helpful assembling the DG1000. I would watch out for that neighborhood down there by Jeff Banks. That neighborhood looks a little rougher.
Well, anybody that's got an open class glider with a 6-piece wing. All right, Kelvin.
Kelvin wanted a proxy, and I can't recall which. Have you got it, Jim?
I have to dig through my email.
I'll grab it here.
All right.
He's usually down around 18.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, I got the email right here for Kelvin. I can be his proxy, and he wants like 19, 18, 17 in that order.
Okay. Well, it's 19 it is.
No, because Rita already has 19.
Oh, excuse me, 18.
18.
And which glider is, I don't know.
Gila Fox.
Okay. Well, there's another one. Oh, they're both Kilo Fox. Yeah.
I believe so.
Well, maybe he needed all 3.
Well, he needs 2.
I was going to say, is he on the Keith Essex plan?
That'd be nice.
Maybe. He'll be fine with 1. He's only paid for 1. I think he only wanted 1.
Okay. Noel?
Yeah, why don't you put me down for 27?
27. Okay.
27.
And call sign?
Papa Mike. We're back to Papa Mike this year.
Papa Mike. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Andy Scott.
About 1-6.
1-6er. Okay. Call sign?
Indio Alpha.
India Alpha. Okay. And Mr. Brian Case.
I don't need one.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody that I did not call that was looking for something? Okay, so just to confirm this very briefly, it shouldn't take long. Jeff Banks, I have down as number 1. Rita Idris, I have down as 19.
Sure. I think everybody can see the screen. Hopefully.
Not now.
Not now. There you go.
Oh, okay. So you've been filling it in though. I was just reading off my spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Kelvin Flavel, number 18. Greg Funston, number 41. Heinz Skelhar, number 20. Ito Ryosuke is number 9. Chris Clicks, number 23. Dave Lindbergh, number 14. Charlie Longa, number 2. Mike Newgard, number 17. Randy Scott, number 16. Tom Udd, number 6. And Noel Wade, number 27. Okay, so that concludes the trailer lottery, and the rest of the sections I guess will be notified by email as people roll in. We actually have several people that had asked for trailer spots, but were not present for the meeting. So I think that we ought to just reflect that in the meeting minutes, and whatever shows up in whatever order will first come, first serve on that.
Yeah, I'll send out an announcement and ask those that didn't to just email me, and it'll be taken on a first come, first serve basis.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Jim and Craig. That was a really efficient operation. I like that. I guess, Craig, can you, do you want to shift screen sharing over to Noel? Noel, you want to go next?
Do you want to do that, or do we want to go over future events?
Let's do, and future events. I mean, I think Noel can talk about Region 8 at the same time he's getting ready to talk about MacCready. And then we got Charlie for sure that would maybe toss in some info that's with DustUp coming close in the near future.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have a lot on it. It looks like we have 22 people signed up last time I checked. I got limited to 70 people right now, and I'm not sure about the whole COVID thing, how many we should limit it to. That's the plan right now. So yeah, I guess I don't have a lot on it. What I hadn't thought about it. Sorry.
No problem. We appreciate you taking it on, and I love your enthusiasm for jumping in there and doing that. It's one of these things where even if you haven't done it before, then you just jump right into it. And
yeah, you know, I've actually never been to the DustUp. Not once.
That would be good. And then one thing I would mention on the emails, and it concerns the DG1000 going to the DustUp. And DG1000, the membership of that group, that's usually parsed up where there's 10 or 12 members, and then their day comes every once or 10 or 12 days. And with the DustUp, the foundation takes the DG1000 off the schedule, and then they focus on getting people rides with mentors. So that usually runs something like 2 mentor flights per day on each day that the DustUp is running. And we are looking for names of folks who are preferably a private pilot that is looking to go do some cross-country training with a mentor. And there's some great folks on the mentor list. And then we'll get a pilot briefing, and then they'll go up and fly probably about a 2.5 hour flight, and then they'll swap out, and then another student or a mentee will go up and fly on the DG1000 that same day too. And I think on one of the mentor days, it was a pretty good day. I think I flew like 350 kilometers, but I took a 1.5 hour break during the middle of the soaring day to land and then debrief one of the students and then brief another student. So even with you know, a little break in between, both of the instructional flights can be pretty beneficial for the folks. And the nice thing about some of the mentor flights is that shortly after getting a mentor flight, some of the mentees have gone on and flown their own 300-kilometer triangle on their next flight. So it can be pretty beneficial for them too. So we're looking for a list of names. If you have some info or names, just send them to me and I'll try to make sure that we work with Charlie and help them get on the schedule out there.
Yeah, on that note, actually, Tori Tolton is going to coordinate the mentors and mentees, instructors, and all the two-seat ships. Some planning has gone in. Brad Johnson is actually going to run the grid, and that his DG 505 group is going to help him.
Good.
And then Noel's going to do the weather briefing, and I'm going to do the safety briefing.
Okay, so we'll have, and Tori is also working a new scheduling program for the DG 1000 group too. So that will be helpful, and we'll get the right mentors and right students lined up together on that and have some good flights on that.
Yeah, you know, I see the list of people. I'm going to do a spreadsheet for Tori once we're closer to the DustUp.
Great.
You'll know who's want to be a mentor, who wants to be a mentee.
Awesome. And then there's also an opportunity for outside of those two-ship flights to do some lead and follow flights too. So if there's someone that
yeah, I'm thinking I haven't talked to Kevin Pinky. I'm gonna get him to coordinate that, I think.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so I think Rita, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask briefly, we talked with Charlie this morning and I brought it up. Kevin always was able to talk to Tony Wiederkehr and we were able to fly his ship during the DustUp. And if it would be a good idea for Kevin to reach out to Tony again, or anybody else would like to reach out in case if he's willing to land his glider again for the DustUp event.
Yeah, I think Mike might know more about that too, but my understanding is that that is most likely going to happen, and I'll talk to Kevin about that.
Thank you.
Kevin's a better contact on that than I am.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're getting closer to any other future events that we wanted to talk about. I think that I think even Kelvin is signed on now, and with we do have some you know, issues that we're going to discuss in the future on the proper use of the clubhouse or the bathhouse for the DustUp. And I believe we're going to have a committee meeting at some point that regarding some of those restrictions. I'm not sure if Kelvin's ready to talk about that when it comes to future events, but
Brad is here too if he wants to add anything about Twisp.
Basically, I looked at the sign up just a little while ago. I think there are 15 or 14 that are signed up. We have room for 16 gliders that are that require tows. And I think of that 16, there are about 11 or 12. So we still have a couple of slots remaining. That's about it.
Phil, Colin.
Hello, Colin.
Hey, yeah. So with regards to the the clubhouse at a freighter, the Grant County is now in phase 3. And over the next week, I and a couple of others will look at what that means to us from an operations perspective. But I'm pretty hopeful that we'll have a reasonable capability of running operations and also events through the course of the spring and summer.
That sounds good. And I think Noel has been, you know, looking at that phase 3 operations too for what that means for Region 8. And I think it's probably time for Noel to jump in.
Okay, yeah, so I'll start with a couple of different updates about Region 8, and then if we don't have other events to talk about, I can jump into MacCready theory whenever we want, or you can all run away before I start talking too long, whatever your choice is. So first things first, we are going to have a Region 8, and I would like you all to join me in thanking two people who are here tonight who have graciously stepped up to help out in our time of need, as it's been very hard to locate a CD and a scorer between the pandemic and the crush of events and people trying to make up for lost time with this coming soaring season. So please join me in thanking Mr. Mike Newgard for stepping up to be our contest director this year. And please also thank, Brian Case for agreeing to be our scorer for this year. Really appreciate that. Thank you both, gentlemen, very, very much.
You
with
guys
that,
rock.
They do. They do indeed. So we also have somebody who's not here, who's doing some great work for us behind the scenes, Mr. Mark Stanfield, who is running the Hood River Soaring group and the Youth Soaring program there. He has gotten at least 2 youths there to sign up to come out to help run wings for the event. We could, however, still use some more ground crew. So please start spreading the word with the local clubs and students, especially. As we all know, the event is a great time to come out. If you've been to the DustUp, then you can run the launch line and then take some afternoon cross-country flights during the contest. Or if you're just, looking to hang out with experienced pilots and learn from them, it's a great environment to do that. We're currently sitting at about 15 entrants, and thanks to some legwork by Charlie Longley, we've already got 4 tow planes lined up. We're going to have both of the Evergreen Soaring tow planes as well as the SGC tow planes this year. And we'll be looking to get some SGC tow pilots lined up for those tow planes, but Charlie has already sourced the Evergreen tow pilots. So thank you very much, Charlie, for that. Really appreciate it. Like I started to say, we have about 15 entrants, so that leaves us with about another 15 spots left. So spread the word, let folks know that if they're interested, now is the time to enter. Unfortunately, now is also the time when the SSA website has blown up. If any of you haven't checked it lately, they decided to start to go live with a brand new website, only they hadn't figured out how to carry over a lot of the existing tools and systems. And probably the less I say about that, the better. I think the best summary I can give to my response to that whole thing as an IT professional is that my frustration with that situation drove me back to rec.aviation.soaring for the first time in 8 years. Because I figured if there is one place where Noel can vent that he won't be the most outrageous voice online, it'll be rec.aviation.soaring. So if you or anybody you know is having troubles signing up for the contest and you want to sign up or they want to sign up, please have them get in touch with me directly. I'm happy to work it all out with folks directly. We can still make this work. In the meantime, I am going to be sending individual emails to folks that have already signed up to give you a status update on how much of your paperwork I've received, whether I've received your deposit, et cetera, so we can all be on the same page there. I've spoken to Mike Wren at the Port of Ephrata, and he is A-OK with our events happening. As was previously announced in this meeting, we are looking at phase 3 in Grant County right now, which in Mike's view means that the biggest thing for us is that we need to be clean. We need to practice good social distancing whenever we're inside, and especially, and we must wear masks when we are indoors inside of any enclosed facility at the airport grounds, most especially at the airport office, but also indoors of other facilities on the airport grounds. So other than that, he's got no problems with us holding an event, having folks there, using the RV spots. The port itself has opened up the RV spots that the airport runs for rental. And because of the question marks around the COVID situation and how vaccinations are going to proceed between now and the contest, we are looking at probably holding briefings either on the Clubhouse deck or in one of the big hangars, so that we can spread out a bit and not be on top of each other in the CAP building. But still, if we need to get out of the sun or the wind or the weather. Hopefully the sun, because we're there to soar. But that, in a nutshell, is the status of the contest. Things have gone from looking a little bit rough due to staff concerns to looking pretty good just in the last week or two. So thanks again, especially to Charlie for helping arrange the tow pilots and tow planes, Mike for stepping up to be our CD, and Brian for stepping up to be our scorer. Does anybody have any questions about the contest? All right, great. Does anybody have any other events or operations business they want to talk about before I jump into MacCready theory and final glides?
Yeah, I've got two questions about events. The first one was, Brad, you referred to Twisp sign up being nearly full. Was that right? Brad?
Brad is muted.
Okay, there I am. No, there's still several spots to go. I think
I'm very puzzled because I looked in my email and I don't see any mention of Twisp on the SGC mailing list since the 27th of January. A comment from Charlie saying we're still working on the details. The plan is to have two tow planes and it's all still fluid.
It's methyl state. It's not Twisp. He misspoke.
Yeah, it's Meadow.
Yeah.
So, but was this announced on the SGC list, or was this only announced internally in like Evergreen or something?
No, it was announced.
Yeah, there's still some spots. So if you're interested,
okay.
Go for it.
I don't see any mention of the word metho, and I'm subscribed to the SGC list since last summer.
But one thing I want to say is that some of these lists, I think they were tried to be inclusive of every single person that could possibly have an interest in Metal or Twisp. And the good news is that there's slots open. So
okay.
I think that we can still sign up for that, and Brad can take your name right now.
That'd be great. It's just I know there were some other people who might be interested, and if it looks like to me it was never posted on the SGC list. It may have been posted
Alex,
on
this is Craig. What list are you talking about?
The SGC News list.
SGC News? Okay,
Yeah.
that's not an official communication channel because it doesn't reach everybody. But usually things that are sent out by blast email are also copied there.
Yeah, that's what I am used to. I mean, that's where like.
But if you're a current member, you should have gotten an email from the SGC along with everybody else. Just a plain old email.
Exactly, and I'm saying I have no such mention in my inbox.
Okay.
I didn't know if there was another list besides SGC News. Then a lot of people are getting the word.
Yeah, let's work offline and make sure that your membership status is where it should be and that you've got through the filter correctly.
Yeah, something was sent out over a week ago to everybody, and I think I sent one mailing out to 71 people. It was everybody that had expressed an interest in the past, and then it's also on the homepage of the SGC website.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the last item.
So it's going to individuals. It isn't going to the members, to the broadcast list. That's the problem. Okay.
No, I think
it is on the
it's also
homepage of the SGC website.
Okay.
Right, but it didn't get broadcast email to the entire membership, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and so I know there are people in both Hood River and at Willamette who are potentially interested, but have heard nothing. So I'll be glad to pass this information on.
Brad?
Alex, sorry, go ahead.
Brad?
Yes.
Can you send me the invite? I probably have it, but send me the invite and I'll send it out on Wild Apricot, the email blast from that has everybody on the list.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And Alex, this is Phil. So we do appreciate you spreading the word down there at Hood River. And there's, I think there's room still available, excuse me, at Willamette too. And there's still room available. And plus there are other options to squeeze more people in, you know, like with 2 people using 1 ship or whatever. So it can be beneficial.
That's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but Alex, I think we're getting close to hitting the numbers. So
There's still 8 spots available. The 16 glider spots is only half taken right now.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, because the last I remember hearing was there was going to be a group at Twisp and a group at Methow, and
That's
motor
correct.
gliders at Methow, and the
That's correct.
non-motor gliders at Twisp, and that was a long time ago. Okay, cool. The second question I had was on the SGC list. A couple of months back, there was that talked about the events for the year. There was a mention of like an OLC camp. It looked like following the DustUp, the week following the DustUp, and it said something like more details in future, but I haven't seen anything posted since on that.
I can answer that question. So it's a non-organized camp. It's in conjunction with Evergreens Camp, and if you go to the SGC website and look at operations, there's a sign up genius, and it's on there basically. And there's already a co-pilot signed up for 3 days, but it's not an organized camp.
Okay. That's good to know, because when Willamette we just started flying last week. We got our own internal meetings, and so I was trying to announce all these events going on so people could be aware of them. So it's great to have some details.
Okay, yeah. If you look at our website now, it says concurrent with Evergreen Soaring Camp. No organization, just come and have fun. And
okay,
I
cool.
changed it about a week ago.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Yeah, unfortunately, just as a footnote on that before I pivot to the MacCready theory stuff, I do think there always has been a little bit of confusion that it's got SGC in it, but the SGC news group is just sort of a general loose discussion group, and official communications go out through the Wild Apricot system, which hosts our website. But it does, I'll bet you that there's some kind of targeting on those emails that's only getting people that have paid their dues within a certain window or something like that. And my guess is with the, I know you're current. I was actually just looking at you guys were talking. You're totally current. No worries there for you.
Checking the website obsessively when the DustUp was, when is the DustUp opening? When is the DustUp opening? Yeah. And so I'm trying hard and I'm not getting the information. So there's a gap.
Yeah. Well, thanks for raising that so that we can look at it.
By the way, Alex, this is Phil. It's great having someone obsessive about soaring, because that means we can use you as a volunteer coming up next time. So it's so good to have you on board.
All right. If there's nothing else, I will go ahead and share my screen here and take you guys through a little presentation. I just got back from Williams Soaring at 3 a.m. this morning, and they were burning all the stubble fields in preparation for planting. So that's why you'll hear me coughing a bit. My apologies. But hopefully I will still be coherent in presenting this. If I am not, certainly call me out on it. All right, so I know that a couple months back, Mike Newgard was talking about MacCready theory and speed to fly and some things there that are really, really good and really useful. And there's a couple of techniques that we've covered in the past for the DustUp that we haven't touched on in a couple years that I thought I would talk about here regarding final glides and how MacCready theory and your flight computer play into that and how to do so safely. This talk is going to be a little bit basic for some of the old hands here, but hopefully for those of you that are still getting into cross-country soaring or are a little bit, even if you are accomplishing cross-country soaring, some of the final glide stuff is a little bit of weird juju for you. This will hopefully clarify things and give you a few rules of thumb to fly by. So it's going to look like a lot, but the basic outline for what I'm going to talk about here, by the way, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to briefly touch on MacCready theory. I'm going to briefly touch on the definition of a final glide. We're We're going to talk about the arrival height that your flight computer shows, how MacCready plays into that, how you can lie to your flight computer for safety and profit, and how to put it all together, some rules of thumb for making safer final glides. What I'm going to give you here is not going to allow you to win contests purely through your final glide, but that's not how you win contests anyway. And doing what I show here is going to get you hopefully safely home, and yet also still pretty quickly home, especially if the day is any good for the thermals. So first, let's talk about MacCready theory and what it is and what it isn't. MacCready theory, in a nutshell, says that basically if you can predict the average strength of your next thermal, then math can tell you the optimal speed to fly between now and that thermal so that you maintain or achieve the greatest average speed around a course. Okay. MacCready is all about getting the best average over a course across the ground or through the sky. Okay. One of the things that's really tricky, though, that people forget, especially when you've been using MacCready for a while, we don't actually all use the true MacCready theory in its purest form because we can't predict our next thermal. But to kind of explain in a little bit more detail in shorthand why MacCready theory works is essentially that if you fly faster, you lose more altitude, and then you have to spend more time climbing to regain that altitude. If you have a strong thermal, that climb back up is fast, and so you're good. If that climb is slow because of weak thermals, then you don't want to have to climb very high, because anytime you climb, we're going to neglect wind for this argument, but anytime you climb, you are achieving 0 miles per hour towards your destination. So the longer you are climbing, the lower your overall average speed will be. The more time you spend on 0, the more that drags down your average speed for the entire rest of your flight. And so by balancing the speed you move forward in cruise with the lack of speed in climb, you get to the greatest overall average by balancing those things. And MacCready is just the math behind that balances that trade-off. Like I started to say, we can't predict our next thermal. So we all use a crutch. What we do is we use the average climb rate or the average thermal strength for the last thermal we were in, or for the average across the day, or take your pick, somewhere in between. And this works because most thermals on a given day fall within a small range of strengths, right? We'll all talk about the 10 knotter that we hit that one climb on the day, but most of the time it was like, oh, well, the thermals were like 6 to 8 knots, or the thermals were like 3 to 5 knots, right? It's always a pretty small range. So this all sort of works out, but none of it is using the theory in the purest form. And that's MacCready in a nutshell, okay? We're balancing factors. We're trying to achieve a high overall speed. And when we, well, there's more to talk there, but I'll save it for the next slide. Now, we're going to shift gears. We'll talk about the final glide, because final glides, at least I know for myself, when I started in Soaring, you would hear final glide, and people would say it with this sort of mystical connotation. Ooh, it's the final glide. And if you nail your final glide, it's going to make your flight so much better, so much faster, or whatever. But we want to really think about it critically and from basics. Final glide is nothing more than the phase of flight or the period of flight between your last climb and your entry into the landing pattern. That's all it is, okay? Demystify it. There is nothing super special about it in terms of a magical way to gain a ton of speed or gain a bunch of positions in your contest flying or whatever. Put that out of your mind. You can tweak at the edges, but that's not the point. The word final in final glide can lead people astray. It does not mean that it's the final decision you make in the cockpit. You don't go, oh, I'm on final glide, and you turn your brain off until you land. That's a really bad way to do a final glide. And the word final also doesn't mean that your decision to be on final glide is a final decision. It's a phase of flight requiring continuous re-evaluation. Once you choose to try to glide home and you say to yourself, all right, I'm on final glide, you need to make sure that you always check yourself and reserve the right to change your mind, to reverse your decision and go, nope, that wasn't my final glide. I'm going to take another climb. And you need to be willing to give up that position, because if you don't, if you aren't, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So that's final glide. So I'm going to lay these topics out one at a time here. We will bring it all together at the end. So we touched on MacCready theory. We've touched on final glide. Now there's one more thing that we should talk about, and that's on your flight computer. And I don't care if this is a PDA or a Super Hammer 9 advanced, plugged in system with real-time winds and all the latest UJAWs. The arrival altitude is something that most flight computers, pretty much all flight computers in the last 20, 25 years, can show for the next destination or for your landing point. But your flight computer doesn't predict the future. There's no crystal ball built into the circuitry. All it does is take certain inputs and assume that things are going to proceed exactly as you say they will. That's very important. We're going right back to the ye old garbage in, garbage out, okay? It is taking a series of assumptions and it's making a straight line calculation. That's all it's doing. So the flight computer typically will look at your current altitude, your MacCready setting, your current winds, your distance to the target, and calculate how much altitude you'll lose if everything in that list remains true or remains the exact same as it is now. Therefore, when you set a MacCready setting in your computer, you are giving it a promise, okay? If you set a MacCready 3 in your flight computer, this is a point of confusion for people. You are not telling the computer, assume there are 3 knot thermals out there. That is not what you're telling your flight computer. You see MacCready 3, and a lot of people connect those dots and think, oh yeah, I'm telling the flight computer that there's 3 knot thermals out there. No, 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 no. When you set MacCready 3 on your flight computer, you are promising it that you are going to fly at a speed equal to MacCready 3 for your glider. It's a really critical concept, okay? You are promising to your computer, from now until I tell you otherwise, I am going to fly a certain speed. And this is really important, as I've said. So it's really important to know that your flight computer, again, I don't care if it's a simple PDA or a super expensive piece of kit, your flight computer is not looking at your current airspeed and going, well, if he keeps flying at this airspeed, this is what he's going to do. And there's a very good reason for that, right? If your flight computer was looking at your current airspeed, it's going to bounce around up and down several knots as you fly every minute. And so your predictions would be all over the map, right? It would just be bouncing all over the place. It would be really hard to read. So your flight computer ignores your airspeed when it's showing you how you're going to do between now and your destination. Instead, it looks at the speed to fly based on your MacCready setting, and it assumes you are going to fly that speed. But we're pilots. We are damn good liars. So we can lie to our computers in the name of safety. Because the flight computer is going to make this assumption about what speed we are telling it we want to fly, we can tell it that we're going to fly really fast. We're going to say, I'm going to fly a MacCready speed 5 or a MacCready speed 6. And it's going to assume that we are going to fly very, very quickly and thus have a very steep glide angle. But we don't have to do what we promised the computer we're going to do. Computers, luckily, don't keep track of our promises, and they don't hold our lying against us, as far as we know. So we can fly slower than what we promised the computer, and our real-world glide will be better than what the computer is estimating. Because since we fly slower, we're going to fly at a shallower angle, and so we're going to be continuously gaining altitude relative to what the computer thinks we should be achieving. This means that if we do this little lying trick, we add to our safety margin as we fly along. And this is really great on really long final glides because over time, that safety margin will add up. If you do it in the last 2 miles, not a big difference. If you do it over 20 miles, big difference. This cushion obviously helps protect us against things like running into sink, running into bad headwinds, unexpected issues, having to deviate for traffic, what have you, right? This is a trickle of money that comes into our bank that we can then spend to offset less than optimal conditions. And if we start out flying a little bit faster, it leaves us the option to slow down, okay? So I want to be clear here. We don't set MacCready like 5 and then fly MacCready 1. We set MacCready 5 or 6 and then we fly MacCready 3 or maybe 4, okay? And the reason is because if we fly at that sort of middle setting, we can either, gear up and fly faster if we're doing super duper well, but we also can slow down and stretch our glide to give us even more margin. So we give ourselves options there. Now, the catch is the options are not equal. The difference between a MacCready 1 and a MacCready 0, or a MacCready 2 and a MacCready 1, is not that big. Because of the nature of our glide polars, if you imagine a glide polar in your head, and I'm sorry I don't have one here to illustrate, your glide polar trends much more steeply, much more quickly at the higher speeds. So the difference in glide angle between a MacCready 3 and a MacCready 4 is larger than the difference between a MacCready 1 and a MacCready 2. So by that same token, if you start out at a MacCready 3, 4, 5, whatever, and you drop down by 1 or 2 MacCready settings, you get a much bigger advantage than starting at a MacCready 2 and dropping to a MacCready 0. So all these things are basically lining up to say, do not start your final glide at a low MacCready setting because you don't leave yourselves any outs. You can't slow down slower than best L over D and get any better glide, right? So give yourself some cushion, start out faster than that. Like I said before, if you start at a 4 and things don't go great and you have to drop all the way down to like a MacCready 1, that's a big speed difference and a big glide angle difference and a big safety margin difference. So here are some rules of thumb to kind of put a bow on all this. And this is kind of prescriptive, but I think for those of you that are still getting in the groove of cross-country flying and flying a lot, I think these hopefully kind of boil it down to a simpler set of decisions that you can then use in most situations, and they're never going to really lead you astray. Obviously, they don't substitute for your own decision making, so you do need to continuously engage your brain on your final glide. But when you're getting on your way home, fly towards your destination and take climbs as you would normally while flying at the proper MacCready speed to fly for the day. So if you've been running into 3 and 4 knot thermals or achieving a 3 and 4 knot climb with those thermals, then set your MacCready to 3, fly at that speed, and keep doing that. When your flight computer starts showing you that you're close to being able to get from home, that's not the moment to go on to final glide. What you should do is keep climbing for a little bit longer, and while you're climbing, bump up the MacCready setting in your flight computer. So in my example, I've been flying around over Central Washington Basin at a MacCready 3, doing fine. I'm on my way home, and I get to the point where my flight computer's like, if you climb another 500 feet, you can make it back to Ephrata. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to stop at a thermal, and I'm going to climb. And while I'm climbing, I'll bump that MacCready 3 up to a MacCready 5. Okay. Now, doing this is going to cause the flight computer to reevaluate and say, oh, well, there's no way you can make it home from here at a MacCready 5. You need an extra 1,500 feet. So you keep climbing with that higher MacCready setting until the computer says, all right, now you can get home flying this higher MacCready setting. And you say, great, now I have money in the bank. Okay. So then you leave the lift and you start your final glide, but you do not fly at that higher MacCready setting. You fly at your slightly lower MacCready speed, like a MacCready 3, for example, if that's what you're flying the rest of the day. And when you do this, this is when you are lying to your computer, right? You're saying, pretend I'm flying MacCready 5, but you're really flying MacCready 3. So your glide angle is going to be better than predicted, and you should continuously and slowly see your arrival altitude get higher and higher. And again, that's that altitude you're banking away that, you know, you run into some sinks, it'll drop back down, but you fly back out of the sink and it starts climbing again, right? So you're giving yourself this reserve. And if you run into trouble, yes, lower your MacCready setting. Let's say it was showing you were 200 feet over a MacCready 5 and you run into some sink and now you're 500 feet below a MacCready 5. Well, maybe now you drop it back to a MacCready 4 or a MacCready 3.5 on the computer. And in real life, you're going to fly a MacCready 2. You're going to drop from MacCready 3 to MacCready 2. So you're still telling the computer to basically be pessimistic, but you're still flying a little bit slower so that you have that margin of safety. As I've said before, you've got the options to shift gears up or down. Let's say you run into some really nasty sink and it's looking, you know, not so good. Great. You know what? Shift gears back into, okay, I got to find another climb before I get home. I'm not on final glide now. Find that thermal, climb up. As you climb, you repeat this process. Bump your MacCready setting back up. Climb until it says you can get home from that higher MacCready setting. Start this process over again, fly at a middling MacCready speed, and see how you do. If you do this and repeat this process, unless you run into something really catastrophic, you should be able to make it home using this sequence of decision points. And as I keep saying, it's important to always keep evaluating, keep reevaluating. And I know we all hate to have to do it, but stopping and taking a climb is way better than having to de-rig in a farmer's field. So don't be shy about shifting gears when you need to. Only if your safety margin builds up quite a bit can you then start flying at the MacCready setting that you told your computer you're going to fly at. You know, only be truthful when you know it's going to work out. Channel a little bit of Wall Street or something, I guess. Anyway, it's always more fun to accelerate during the last 5 to 10 miles of your glide than it is to be decelerating and slowing down and biting your nails on those last 5 to 10 miles. So bank that altitude away, wait until you know absolutely certain that you're going to make it home, and then come blasting home with those high speeds. You know what? It's still a hell of a lot of fun, even if you only do it for the last few miles, and it's safer and going to work out much more often. And my final wish is that you always make it home to a view like this one or even better. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Noel, thank you very much. This is Brad Pattison. I remember when someone was first talking about, I think it was Mofsis, about final glide, and he was saying, to be more conservative, you raise your MacCready number up. And I was going, what? That seems totally backwards. But now I think I understand that by raising your MacCready number up, you're essentially, if you're climbing when you're doing this, looking at final glide, what you're saying is that by having a higher MacCready number, it's going to force you to climb a little higher. And then when you depart that last thermal for the final glide, then you readjust your MacCready so that the arrival altitude slowly increases at the destination. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, you've hit the first part on the head, which is by setting a higher MacCready setting while you're climbing, you're forcing yourself to climb a little higher before you start heading home. So you're banking away a little bit right at the beginning. The second half of that, I think we're saying the same thing, but I'm just going to reiterate it one more time in the way I'm trying to explain it, which is the key thing is to have your computer predicting a high MacCready speed while you fly a slightly slower MacCready speed. And that act of what I call lying to the computer is what provides the safety margin, because the computer thinks you're doing this and you're really doing this, right? So as you go over time, right, you're ending up higher and closer to home than the computer thinks you're going to be.
So if you set in 5 during the climb, you depart the climb, you're heading for home, then you reset it maybe at a 3 and fly a little bit slower than it's telling you. Is that right?
No, I'm advocating you leave it on a 5.
Okay.
The computer keeps calculating at a 5, but you personally fly at the speed you would for a MacCready 3. Yeah.
I got it. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Noel or Brad, this is Dave Mellon. I guess the only thing I would suggest, and I guess I learned this from people far smarter than me, is that last slide. If you get in trouble, chasing the MacCready down is kind of like heads down in the cockpit versus just find a thermal or a place to land. Because as soon as you start trying to, shit, I'm not making it at a 5, I'm going to lower it to a 4, I'm lowering it to a 3, I'm lowering it to a 2. Typically, you're wasting time where you should be like eyes out of the cockpit looking for your next climb or an airport to land at or a field. So that's the only advice I'd have.
Absolutely. I think that's really well said. I'm going to go back to a slide because I didn't read it word for word and I skimmed it, but I want to make this point. I tried to say it really explicitly here. If you run into trouble, you can lower your MacCready setting and slow down a bit, right? So let's say you run into some stink, you were at a MacCready 5, drop it to a 4 on the computer, fly at a 2, right? Drop from a 3 to a 2. But, and I say it right here, hopefully you can see my cursor. If you have to do this more than once, stop and climb. Because like you said, Dave, you just don't want to chase it down and down and down and down because it's just taking a bad situation, make it worse and worse and worse and worse.
The way I do it is I'll set it at 5, and then look at my arrival altitude. It says 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet or whatever I picked there. And as I go along, if that number's going down, I start slowing down, even to keep my arrival altitude at that still 1,000 feet. Since I'm at a MacCready of 5, I can slow down easily to do that.
Yep, that's an excellent way to handle that too.
So Noel, oh wait, oops, sorry. Oh gosh. So I'm gonna have to, I want to set a 3, and then I figure out what the speed to fly is, and then I dial in a 5 to watch my altitude.
Yeah, if you're not sure what the right MacCready setting or what MacCready speed is at a certain value, yeah, you can set it. Watch the computer to tell you to speed up or slow down, and then remember what that speed is it's telling you to fly, and then switch it back to the higher value.
Right.
As you fly, this is especially important if you're flying club ships or you're jumping around between ships, it's harder to remember it. If you own a ship and you fly the same ship over and over again, I highly recommend that you develop a sense for what those speeds are. Pardon me. Pardon me. You don't have to be precise, 3 or 4 knots either side is usually not going to make a huge difference unless you're in a really low performance ship. So, you might think, okay, well, and these are just purely example numbers. They're not real, but you might just develop a sense for okay, well, a MacCready 2 and my ship is somewhere around 60 knots. And a MacCready 3 is somewhere around 72 knots, and yeah, there's wind and a lot of other factors, but again, you don't have to be super precise. And if you're unsure, then your original suggestion, I think, is perfect, which is dial in the speed you want to fly, let the computer tell you what speed to fly, remember that, and then make sure to flip the computer back to the higher MacCready speed.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Noel. A few thoughts here, I guess. And the first one is a little bit of a rant. Because I think that the MacCready number itself, when it comes to calculation of the final glide, numerically doesn't make any sense anymore. And I think it's an unfortunate holdover from a point where we had, the only thing we had was, I'd never, it was before my time, when the only instrument that we had, was the MacCready ring. Right, and you would set it, to the, so the only computer that you had, could speak in this one scale, right, which is the MacCready number. I kind of wish that you could actually punch in the final glide speed into your, LK8000, right? It would have been a lot more intuitive and say, if I fly at 70, this is what I'm going to get, right? For a specific glider. And that actually, so in somewhat responding to Marlene, I think, it's interesting because, and this is maybe, diving into the deep end of the pool a little bit, the problem is if your computer is also your speed to fly vario, for instance, you're working yourself into an interesting situation where, you're going to set the MacCready number. And, even if you set it on your PDA and it syncs to your vario, which a lot of them do, you will be flying with a stick push indication all the way through because you're not flying as quickly as you told your vario that you're going to be flying. And this is again where I think this sentiment has come up before, is that you kind of I wish there was two MacCready settings, right, in your system, right? One, for the calculation purposes and the other for the actual speed to flight purposes. And this is actually where a MacCready ring is still useful, because if you really just want to know what is the speed corresponding to specific MacCready, one way to do it, if you still have a ring on your vario, you just dial it in, and you have an indication of what your MacCready 3 or MacCready whatever speed is for the glider. And one thing you mentioned, so at the very beginning, Noel, you said that your computer doesn't really pay attention to how fast you're actually flying, and I'm sure that. So, what do you think of equivalent MacCready setting in LK1000?
I don't want to touch that.
You don't
Not in this forum here.
Okay.
To be frank, I haven't messed with equivalent MacCready in a while. I think it's a somewhat esoteric topic for purposes of this presentation.
That's okay. But the reason why I kind of blinked at the statement is because I actually do think when you're like using LK8000 and you're starting to fly faster, it will adjust your arrival altitude at some point. Because I think in some modes it says, oh, you're actually flying, you're making this glide angle, so you're going to get there, whatever. But yeah, I think that the moral is like, it's, if you have a million settings about calculation of a final glide and you don't know all of them and you trust your computer, at some point it's magic and you don't really know what you're going to get out of it.
Just to provide a little context for folks that haven't seen LK8000, this is often sometimes called auto MacCready on some systems, where although I said your computer does not pay attention to your airspeed, some of them have this ability to look at the speed you're flying and your glide angle and say, oh, this is equal to a MacCready of this value, and can go even further and reset your predicted glide every few seconds based on that situation. And if it's working well, that can be really useful, because then, kind of as people alluded to, you could just look at it, look at your destination and make sure you're always going to get there with 1,000 feet to spare, and just be speeding up or slowing down to try to hold that margin. However, if it's not quite working right, or if there's a subtle error in it that you might not catch, it can lead you astray. So there are these systems out there, and if anyone wants to tinker with them, that's totally fine. What I wanted to do here, especially tonight, was to just try to make it as straightforward as possible and as universal as possible, so that pretty much any flight computer will do what I've described or allow you to follow this technique I've described. But you're right, Moses, there are these situations out there and these tools out there that you can get pretty cool with if you're willing to put in the work and cross-check them.
So Noel, if you're on your final glide, it's like you're figuring you're going to fly, say, 65 knots or 70 knots. What would keep you from just watching what your arrival altitude is? And if it's increasing faster than you think you need to, you'd speed up a little bit. Or If it's not increasing at all, maybe slow down a little bit.
That is perfectly fine in general. The thing to remember, though, is that there are factors that may not be obvious on your flight computer just based on arrival altitude. And this is true in multiple techniques. So I'm about to give a situation that would also potentially come up using the more basic technique. But you do have things like, what if you have to cross a ridge line? You might need to preserve some altitude to get across a ridge line, and then your exact arrival altitude is kind of a moot point, right? It's all about whether you can cross that ridge. Or maybe there's an area that's known to be unlandable between you and home, and so you really want to keep some extra altitude there. Or the other thing I'll say about trying to maintain a constant margin, like just to fix it at 1,000 feet, and let's say you see it float up to 1,500, so you speed up a little bit till it counts down to 1,000, and then you pull back and slow up a little bit.
Yeah, well, no, I would keep it going up a little bit. It's just the amount it'd be going up, you know.
Yeah. To kind of pull this back and say it again, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing that. And in fact, a lot of us that are more experienced with this do something akin to that. But you start getting into some subtleties about how far away am I, how much margin do I need to keep based on how far away I am, based on the weather of the day and the conditions and the local path home and all that sort of stuff. So you can get really complicated really fast, and I would not want to cut things too fine, especially if you're far out, because 20 or 30 miles out, it doesn't take much steady sink over a couple minute period to lose a lot of altitude. And when you're far out, a small difference in starting altitude can make a big difference in your finish location or altitude. So it's always best to be a little bit more conservative earlier in your final glide, is what I'm saying. And you can start chasing that arrival altitude, I think, more aggressively the closer you get to home.
Yeah, it would seem like a lot of those variables, you know, crossing rivers and being less able to predict what's going to happen between where you're at and the finish. Like wouldn't all those things also apply to actually doing the MacCready exercise that you're talking about earlier?
Yeah, but if you're more disciplined at flying slower than you're telling the computer, then the computer is going to notice you go through those situations and adjust that arrival altitude based on a higher MacCready. And so you will see those arrival altitudes change, but you will still be gaining on them because you have been flying at that slower speed and that longer glide angle. So it's just a more conservative approach that is going to be more sort of steady eddy as you go through those fluctuations. Whereas if you're and I know weren't saying this exactly, but I think there can be a temptation to really start chasing that altitude number, kind of like we can chase the needle, right, with thermals and things. And so you have to be aware of that temptation and not try to be too fine with those adjustments, because you can wind up chasing things and worsening your situation through all the pulls and pushes and adding drag, and you lose altitude. Is that because you sped up and went through still air, or is that because you sped up and you went through some sink and so it was worse than you expected, right? It can get complicated. So I'm just trying to keep it really simple with this sort of bog standard approach that you can try and use, and then start to tweak and improvise as you start seeing how it works out for you and for your glider.
And then lift bands, that's a big part of it, right? I mean, if you're getting at the bottom of the middle lift band and then you need to be extra conservative, right? I mean, see, it seems like some days you get very far from cloud base and it really starts to fall off quickly.
That is true when you're flying cross country. Once you get on final glide, though, again, we're terming final glide as that period where you are just going from here to your landing pattern and you're not intending to stop, right? So if you're not intending to stop, then whether you're at the top of the lift band or the bottom of the lift band shouldn't matter, as long as you don't need that extra climb. So I guess the best way to answer your question or to speak to your point there is that you should remain aware of what the lift bands were like. And when you're on your final glide, be more sensitive to falling below final glide as you get down to the bottom of the lift band,
Sure.
because it's going to be harder to get up. But hopefully, if you follow this technique, by the time you get down to the bottom of the lift band, you're pretty close to home and you got a fair amount of safety margin in the bank, and so it's no big deal.
Great.
Any other questions? All right, cool. I will yield the floor.
Noel, that was nice work, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Very complimentary to Mike's discussion as well. Okay, what a good group to have online and giving us some good info. Hopefully, it's a good primer for guys going out and flying. Take it around the room and see if there's anybody else that has other comments they want to make.
Yeah, Phil, this is Jim. I just want to throw something in there real quick. So we've got, thanks to Charlie and others, Sign Up Genius is going for the tow pilots. But in order for that to be really successful, we're also asking that if you're going to go out to freighter and fly your glider, please get on the list of Sign Up Genius and put yourself down. It's kind of a, the chicken and egg syndrome, where the tow pilot doesn't want to go out if there are no glider pilots signed up, and the glider pilots aren't going to go out if there's no tow pilot signed up. But if somebody at least makes the effort and gets themselves on the list, a tow pilot sees it or a glider pilot sees it, it gets things rolling and gives us all the more reason to have an operation out there. Thanks.
Awesome. Gents and ladies, got other things to bring up? I got Mike raising his hand.
Yeah, I just want to point out, we have not yet determined when we're going to start operations at Ephrata yet. We're going to kind of go over that in the next board meeting next week, along with the COVID restrictions as we get clearance from the state, the county, the port, city. That's it.
It'd be kind of interesting to know, and I know this is really a hot topic, but a lot of the people in this organization are probably in the age group where they qualify for vaccinations. And I know some people are not comfortable getting vaccinated, and that's perfectly within their purview. And but we might be a group that has a very high vaccination rate. And that would be a nice thing to know if we're talking to a municipality or whatever. We don't have to be 100%, but if we're up around 70% plus, then on a local basis, we've almost met, the herd requirement to really significantly reduce the risk to everyone. It's just a thought. It'd be interesting to know where we are on that. And I know people don't like to divulge. Some people don't like to divulge that information, but it would be interesting, I guess, because I think we're not a representative slice of the population. We're a little older. I don't know how you do it without offending some people.
Yeah, definitely food for thought.
I can say in Oregon, they've today opened vaccination up to a much wider swath of the population, and it will be formally open to everyone by May 1st. So I would anticipate as early as roughly the DustUp, most adults will have had the opportunity to have had both of their shots and have developed a fair degree of immunity.
And even if you're 2 to 3 weeks after the first shot, it's looking like people have some pretty good level of immunity at that point.
Exactly. And I think Washington's running a little ahead of Oregon, so.
Yeah, Calvin, go ahead. I think Kelvin had his hand up.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just struggling with the unmute functionality. So at Ephrata, the local hospital is taking appointments for COVID vaccinations for those that wish to have it at very short notice. And I was able to get vaccinated last week. I'm happy to share that. So if you wish to get vaccinated but are having trouble finding appointments, that's something to think about. You could combine it with a trip to Ephrata to go flying.
That's great information.
Except for the 48-hour delay.
Exactly, for the FAA. You're right. But I think on that positive note, with vaccines ramping up and possibility of flying, I think we'll, if somebody else has something to throw out there, we'll just call this meeting adjourned. I'll leave it online for other folks to continue their chats. And I may pop in and out if there's something spectacular. If someone tells me how to win the contest. I mean, Noel, it was great learning how to get home, but I really want to learn how to win. So if I hear that, I'll be back. Maybe Jeff Banks has some news from the Geezer glide down in Florida or something like that. Everybody's been out and about, so I'd love to hear any other discussions folks have out there. But I'm just going to kind of sign off, and I'll just be lurking in the background.
Hey Phil, congrats on the world champion or the world record in Soaring magazine this month. That was awesome to see.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was fun to go out and fly, but the bar wasn't very high. I was just barely stepping over the bar, but it was fun. Thank you.
Right on.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows where to find the Sign Up Genius on the website. It's under events. If you go to our website, events and 2021 Ephrata operations, that's where the Sign Up Genius is. And yeah, if you sign up, you'll get a better chance of getting a 12-lot sign up.
All right. Well, thanks, Phil. Thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing you out at the glider field. There's Jim signing off.
Same here, gang. Aloha from Hawaii.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.
Talking on the phone.
All right, Phil, I'm taking off.
Okay, see you, Mike. Have a good night.
Oh, let's see. Leave meeting. It should be assigning you the host to my twin later.
I've never been a twin before. That's funny. Have a good one, man. Good night, Sir Nelson. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Nelson, you're still on mute. I'd love to hear you, though. Oh, here she comes. Thanks, Jan.
Am I unmuted now?
You're looking good, Nelson. Thanks. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm struggling.
Well, how old are you?
Well, I'm not yet 90, but I'm beginning to see it.
I'll be struggling when I'm 89 too, man. Come on.
I'm not 89 either. I'm 82, I think, 83.
Hey, man, that's pretty good. I look forward to getting to that age myself. How's Jan doing?
Well, she's still a baby.
That's good. You marry him young. That's good.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I like it when you were telling a story about selling a Nimbus to Craig, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to sell the Nimbus to Craig." And someone asked you, said, "Hey, are you going to give him a good price?" And you said, "No, I'm going to charge Craig a fortune for that thing."
Huh.
Well, I miss chasing you around the sky, Nelson. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Oh, yeah. Everybody staying well on that end?
I think so.
Good, good. Well, Craig's been carrying the torch and doing all the treasury stuff for us. So, and he hasn't landed in jail yet. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah, it's a good sign.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sign off. I think we're the last two on here. I'm gonna go on a little walkabout this afternoon here in Honolulu. Enjoy a little sunshine. Tell everybody I said hi on that end.
Will do.
Thanks, sir. Have a good night.
You too.